Well, we are very privileged, and I'm honored because I get to introduce Kelley Hunt, who we all know and love because she's been with us many times in the past. And it's always such a pleasure to have you, Kelley, with us. And we know we're in for a treat for the next 30 minutes. So, Kelley is a musician, she's a pianist, she's a writer, she's a composer. She lives in Lawrence, Kansas. She has a 2.5-year-old granddaughter she loves as many as well as the other family members, and she's now working on her next full-length studio release. I am a proud owner of her album Winter Solstice, which came out in 22, and it's wonderful. I'm really looking forward to her next release. And welcome to being with us, Kelley.
Thank you for having me. It's a absolute pleasure to be here with you. And I'm going to start today with music. We all have dreams that seem out of reach. We all have hard winters beyond the breach. But I'm here to tell you, deep in the ground, there are roots feeding blossoms to be found. And we are one day closer to spring, one day closer to spring, one day closer to spring, one day closer. It's time to hold up and listen hard to what the sky says among the stars. The wheel is turning us back outside, where the wind will sing our hearts open wide. And we are one day closer to spring. We are one day closer to spring, one day closer to spring. We are one day closer. When you feel like giving up and there is nothing in your cup, when you're broken past repair, when you're held in doubt and fear, when you've been cold too long, when you're sure your dream is wrong, there is growth from what seemed dead, when you sense that there is love ahead. A new world is coming, and it's made of light. A new bird singing in the dead of night, and there's music coming on bud and branch. Remember, life's giving you a second chance, and we are one day closer to spring. We are one day closer to spring, one day closer to spring, one day closer. And the ground begins to thaw. Thank you. Well, we're not only one day closer to spring, here it is. Today, as I'm speaking to you, it's very, very windy outside our studio. So every now and then I'll hear a little clack, 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 and I'll hear things blowing up against the door. But when I look out the window, it's green. A lot of the brown is starting to dissolve. And it feels this time of year, there's a combination of letting go and of welcoming in the new. So on this Palm Sunday, which is where we are right now, we celebrate the first day of the traditional Christian Holy Week, also called Passion Sunday, commemorating Jesus's triumphal entry into Jerusalem. He was a man. He wasn't the Christ at the time. The Christ consciousness wasn't fully ingrained into him, and yet here he was very much human. And he was making his entry into that capital city one step at a time. And when I think about that journey, that the physical aspect of the journey, if I see that in my mind, it reminds me of the metaphysical journey that we're on, which is our very own personal journey, which is also one step at a time, one day at a time, and we're not alone. And that's the beauty of it. Whenever I do services via Zoom and I can see all your names and all your beautiful faces, it reminds me I'm not alone at all. Whether I can see you or not, there is that energy of the divine that is with me at all times. And I love one of the things that was read earlier that said we are human and divine. And I feel that very strongly in my life. So I think the most important thing is just when we're on our journey is just to make the decision to begin, even when we don't know the outcome. It's important to just begin. So prior to his entry into Jerusalem, the man, Jesus, had raised somebody from the dead, Lazarus. And people in that whole area had heard about this, and there was a big excitement and energy around that. And so when they heard that this guy was coming, who had raised somebody from the dead, they were excited to greet him. And they greeted him as they would traditionally welcome a king. They laid down the palm fronds, and those were strewn in his path as he came into the city. And it was a real sign of honor. Some of that crowd had been with Jesus when he'd raised Lazarus, and they had been spreading the word all this time. So, boy, people were very, very excited. They came to greet him, and they thought that he was coming to be their brand new king in a way that they had experienced a king before. They thought, okay, this guy's coming. He can do this amazing feat. What else can he do? So let's welcome him not only into our city, but into our hearts. And they were focused more on the spectacle of it, the miracle of it. They were focused on the outer aspect of it, the transient aspect, and not the inner aspect of it. And in their minds, they were thinking, this is the beginning of something and someone who is going to change our world. So I think to myself, if I imagine what the energy was like in that city at that time, it was probably overwhelming. It was that time's version of people celebrating in a positive way, like the Super Bowl or the Grammys or something. Those are obviously very transient, but the energy, I imagine, was the same. The sound of it was probably overwhelming, especially for that time. And the beautiful image of the palm fronds, I can just see them being laid down and making this path for him. And usually at that time, if there was someone who was entering, who was regal, who was thinking, oh, I am their king, or I'm going to be their king, they're going to be riding on a big, strong horse. The horse can symbolize the idea of dominance and war and strength. And they may be wearing, regal clothing and regal hat of some sort, and just be very, have a very different countenance as they entered somewhere. But as many of you already know, Jesus didn't do that. Matter of fact, when he knew he was going to be riding into the city, he asked someone to go find him a donkey to ride, but not just any donkey, a colt, a young donkey. So this donkey wasn't even full grown. And I imagine, what must it have looked like for a grown man to be riding on a little colt donkey? I imagine his feet may have touched the ground. And what was he wearing? He wasn't wearing regal robes. Very simple garb. The clothing of the people. And as he entered, he did it in a way that was humble. And there was humility involved. And not only did he ride a colt, a little donkey, but this donkey had never been ridden before. So it was not trained. It didn't know what was going on. And somehow he was able to ride this little donkey and guide it into the throngs of people with all the sound and the images and the energy. And here he came. And I imagine, and this is just my imagination, that he was a calming presence to that young animal. And somehow he was able to not only help that young animal to keep going despite being surrounded with people and noise, but to hopefully calm the people somewhat when they saw, gosh, he's not wearing some kind of long robes. He doesn't have a amazing thing on his head. And boy, what is he riding? What's that guy on? And part of me thinks that may have been endearing to them because he was of the people. And that also reminds me metaphysically of a human being and divine. He was fully human and fully divine. And donkeys are portrayed in biblical works as symbols of service, symbols of suffering. And boy, we know he was going to be suffering. Symbols of peace and humility. And the palm branches that were laid at his feet to cover his path, they were a symbol of victory and triumph, peace, and eternal life. They laid them in his path as a sign of respect. Now, he knew all the while when he was going in that this week was not going to end well in the physical aspect. He knew as he was riding into this city that he would be releasing his body. He was going to die at the end of this. And he would later be accused and ultimately lose his life. He was giving up his life in peace. In fact, he was there to bring peace. He was laying down his life. Charles Fillmore, who is one of the co-founders of the Unity movement, said, and this is not a direct quote, it's just a synopsis. He said, when we lay down our life for something, it doesn't mean that we are agreeing to have our body die. We are laying aside the things that are not of peace, that are not of growth, not of the divine. We are laying aside those things that we may have been focused on, or we may have said to ourselves, oh, this always happens to me, or this is terrible. We lay that aside. If we're saying no to peace of mind, to be willing to tap into what we all have inside of us, which is our consciousness, that will help our growth. When we say those things to ourselves, oh, I'm not good enough, or I can't do that, the metaphysical idea of laying that down helps us connect more deeply to the divine that lives within each of us. So how do we respond when the divine or God or our creator, when it comes riding humbly into our lives? How do we respond to that? Do we say no? Do we worry? Do we welcome it? Do we want to find out more? It's something that Christ consciousness, or whatever words you want to put to it, that's what I'll be using today. When it comes forth into our minds, it's something we all have access to. It's within each of us. And when we choose to access it, that is when things begin to unfold in our lives that we may have never expected. And some of those things can be very, very challenging. You know, have you ever had that feeling when something that you have always done in your life or never even thought about starts to feel kind of uncomfortable, and you begin to step away from whatever that is? In my case, one of those things was when I was a young girl and I was already playing piano and singing and making up songs. I was really, really young at that time. But I was going to a more traditional church with my family, and I really liked the ritual of it. I liked the community of it. And I was too young to understand a lot of the theology of it. But I enjoyed some of the feeling I got when I was there. In fact, I decided to join the children's choir when I was 8 years old because, hey, I love to sing. And I knew a lot of the songs. And a bunch of my friends were doing it, and I thought, cool. Well, won't this be fun? And for me, it was fun. I remember the first time we sang in front of the congregation, and it was a fairly good-sized church in Emporia, Kansas. And it came our time to sing, and the pastor's wife was our director. She was loving and kind, and she never was patronizing to us. She always treated us as if we were older than we actually were. So the first song that she had us sing, and this was during Holy Week, the week of the Passion, was a song called No Man is an Island. And many of us didn't understand really what that meant. You know, when you're 7, 8, 9 years old, you're thinking, wow, that's right, men aren't islands. But she took the time to explain to us what that meant, and the concept that we are never alone, not only with the other humans around us if we ask for help or who are there to support and help us, not just in the church community, but also in a very elemental way, she explained our connection to our Creator, to God. We are not alone. And with that little glimmer of light and little glimmer of understanding, we sang our hearts out. No man is an island. No man stands alone. And we just, you know, can you imagine, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 of us standing up, just belting out this song in our little kid voices. But she allowed us to have some understanding of what we might be singing about. Now, that aspect of attending the First United Methodist Church of Emporia, Kansas, was fun for me and for fulfilling, and it felt right. And as I got a little older, I began to listen to some of the teachings, which also, you know, felt pretty darn right. But as I got older, I'd say probably around high school, there were some things that were said and prayers that were done and songs that we sang that didn't ring true for me. And I was fairly young at that time, and I thought, how can that be? How can that be right? And it felt discombobulating. It felt uncomfortable. It didn't feel right, even at that age. And as I went on to college, and you know, I was doing a lot of reading, I was a lot of interested in a lot of things, but I began to be more discerning about what I was being taught. The idea, and many of us grew up with some of these ideas, the idea of hell and purgatory and sin and being inherently bad until you were baptized and different things. And I know those teachings still serve some people well, but I began to pull away from that. That began to feel uncomfortable to me. And there was some grief involved. I had to let go of some of the things that, I thought meant a lot to me. But it wasn't until later that I realized it's my choice. What I don't have to let go of is the community of people, the understanding that I'm not alone, the music. I can choose what is best for my psyche and my heart. And that developed over the years until now that I'm much older than I was then. It's become easier for me to not judge those who believe differently than me. It became easier for me to decide privately for myself, this is what I believe. It became easier for me to understand that I can create community, I can be loving, I can be connected to the divine consciousness and energy in different ways and learn. I am learning all the time. I haven't stopped on that journey of understanding what's mine to do and where is my place in this world, and how do I live as a being who understands they are fully human and they're fully divine. So I imagine that I'll be learning that until I'm no longer in this body. When I think about the human side of things and I think about the Jesus, the man, making the choices that he did, how difficult that would have been for me. I couldn't have done it. Most people, I don't think, could have done it, knowing what the outcome was going to be. And many times during this week, I've noticed in various organizations and churches that I've attended, there is a grief involved in the letting go and understanding what this man was going to go through. Even the metaphysical side of it, there's a grief involved. So how do we come to peace in a time of fear and a time of darkness? We've all lived through many, many things in our lives. Everyone is different. I think back to the time when the pandemic started. Now, that was a time of fear and darkness. And it was a time of unknowing. When will this end? What's going to happen? Will I make it through? And we lost friends during that time who lost their life. When a country loses 1 million people to a virus, that's a dark time. So what I've found that helped, especially during those first few months, the fear that built up, the tension, the having trouble sleeping, the worry, physically missing my family and friends, I gravitated toward, in this time of fear, love and the mighty power and hand of love and gratitude. And how did that open up and help during this time? It's not easy. Love is a verb in my experience. Love is not something that is weak. It is powerful. So can you imagine coming into that city where people expect you to be something you're really not? He knew he wasn't there to be their big physical king. And at the end of that week, you're going to lose your physical body and transform in another way. Can you imagine that? I can't. The reality of that. So I don't know what's going to happen to any of us, but I do know that in order to get what I call one day closer to spring, which is really just hopeful, one day closer to new growth, to new experience, to welcoming in the new and being open to that, I gravitated and tend to gravitate towards the things that I can do. And it's the mighty strong hand of love. And I'm here to tell you, it's an amazing force in the world. Look at the examples all around us. And I would venture to guess, if we look at our own lives, how has that stepped in both unexpected and expected ways? And I equate it to the story of Jesus coming in the city. It was a choice to begin, whether we knew the outcome or not. It was drawing on that divine consciousness, saying, I will focus on what love has to offer. I will be of service in every way I can. Sometimes, if we're having a low day or we're scared, when we make a choice, whether we feel like it or not, to serve somebody else, I will step into that, to not only wait for love to show up, but here's the catch. And the beautiful catch it is to be the love that shows up, to allow it to come through us, not in a bombastic way to show up, say, I'm going to be the king, I'm going to save the day, but to come in with humility in a humble way and be there to serve in whatever way is best for that situation. Palm Sunday, today, it's all about evolving into our spiritual higher awareness. It's all about all of us coming into and coming home to our own Jerusalem, our own capital city, our own divinity. It's an exciting thing. It's a big deal, you guys. It's a really big deal. When we step away from the literal and step into the metaphysical, which is one of the reasons why I love this community so much. Because these stories are food for our own spiritual growth. They apply to today. This is not just old history and happened to somebody else, and, that doesn't have anything to do with me. If we choose, this has everything to do with us. So one step at a time. One step at a time. I love this quote that says, I stopped looking for the light and decided to become it instead. We never really know the outcome of our journey, do we? We can hope and we can plan, and many times things do unfold in the way we want. But if we're coming in and following our own path, the path that we know is ours, we never really know. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Lao Tzu said this. So if you look back on your life 5 years or 10 years or 20, however far you want to look back and see how did things pan out? How did things work out? Was everything as I thought it would be? Many times no. Many times better. And many times more challenging than we'd ever planned for. How did things turn out when we didn't know the outcome, but we decided to go ahead and make that first step anyway? We decided to do that. We let ourselves be the vessel of love. So some of the things that we can try in our lives, if we choose, is to encourage somebody else on their journey with no judgment, no advice unless asked for. That can be challenging. Sometimes I like to help and I want to fix, but I don't understand what their experience is and what's best for them. Sometimes we just have to say, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. And just do one thing to begin. So observe who inspires you. Who have you seen that has started their own journey? Who do you know that comes in peace? And who do you feel like you want to lay down those palm fronds for? To help them, to clear their path. Who, my friends, is shining their light so brightly that you can't help but see it and be inspired by it? Who is that? I would venture to guess that sometimes it's you. You can be that. One of my sisters, Stacy, said, and I quote, after winter, spring always comes, no matter what we do, no matter how we think we may have failed, no matter what we think we may have lost, and no matter how dark it seems, spring always comes, always. So no matter what we're going through in our lives or we see others going through. Spring will come. In whatever form, it will come. There's an English proverb that says, no matter how long the winter, spring is sure to follow. So whatever journey that you may be on at this moment, or that you see someone else going through, there is an inspiring story about a man who rode into a capital city with humility and humbleness, knowing the harsh outcome, on a little colt donkey in the clothing of the people. And we are still inspired by that today. On a day like this. So as we go into meditation, I want to play us a song that reminds me of this very thing. On a day like this, it all comes clear. What we've done before, what we are doing here. On a day like this, it all slows down. And what's been given comes back around. On a day like this, on a day like this. And when love finds its way to you, it shines like the stars to light a path before you and show you who you are, to take you in its arms and give you one sweet taste of bliss. On a day like this, it takes your breath away, gives you all you've hoped for, bright as this brand new day. On a day like this, so get comfortable where you are. And we relax our shoulders and our jaw, and we take a deep breath. And we allow ourselves the space and the time to go into the quiet. And we remember we are never alone. And if we wish, we can close our eyes. And we take another deep breath. And we can feel that divine energy right here with us right now. We are safe. We are held in the mighty arms of love. And we see the palm fronds before us, and we choose to walk that path, whatever path is ours to walk. And we breathe. On a day like this, we can feel the divine presence with us right here, right now. And we breathe. And whenever we're ready, we slowly bring ourselves back to this moment. We become present to our surroundings, and we breathe again. And we open our eyes. On a day like this, oh, it all comes clear. What we've done before and what we're doing here on a day like this. On a day like this. And so I would like to end today with one more song. As this week unfolds in front of us, and we know that we are following our own path. This is a new day for us. Oh, this is a new way for us. This is a new life, oh, for us. This is a new hope for us. This is a new world for us. Oh, this is a new world for us. This is a new love, a new life, a new hope. Oh, this is a new day for us. A new love, a new love for us. A new day, a new way, a new life, a new hope, a new world, a new love. This is a new day. Oh, a new day for us. We are one day closer to spring. Thank you.
Kelley, that was just wonderful. Thank you so much.